Chapter 4. Wake-up call. With his entire department struggling since Mr. Mabey had taken the reins, Tommy had begun spending an increasing amount of time being involved in lower-level details. After working with one of his offshore delivery groups until almost 1:30 in the morning, Tommy realized he still needed to review Brian's homework. His review done, he lumbered toward the bedroom for what would only be about 3.5 hours of sleep. The next morning, Tommy drove Brian down to the bus stop and asked him to wait for the bus by himself so he could return home and log into the company network. Brian was disappointed, but knew it must be important by the tone in Dad's voice. Tommy raced up the gravel driveway to begin preparing with the offshore and U.S.-based teams for the skirmish brewing back at the office. Apparently, 2 different directors from other areas of the company had demanded that their projects be worked on by Tommy's delivery group per the authority of Mr. Mabey. This break in long-standing company process caused scheduled deadlines to be missed, and the new work could not be completed owing to the lack of information and resources. Shortly after 9 a.m., Tommy arrived to his desk to discover a yellow sticky note on his monitor summoning him to Mr. Mabey's office immediately. As luck would have it, he was also expected in the delivery team's weekly meeting only a few minutes later. Tommy grabbed his laptop and scurried down to Mr. Mabey's office. Tommy walked into the already raging storm. Several department directors were venting to Mr. Mabey about missed deliveries while impatiently awaiting Tommy's arrival. Mr. Mabey turned his attention to berating Tommy for being late. Tommy took a deep breath and tried to weather the attack by explaining that he had been working from home to deal with the offshore team's chaos. The more he tried to explain the issues, however, the more tempers in the room swelled. Mr. Mabey raised his voice to a steady roar and demanded that Tommy be in the office for the 7 a.m. calls going forward. Tommy tried to explain that management was not normally present on these calls and that he had logged in to monitor and mentor his junior staff. So, in actuality, he had been doing more than he had previously expected and not been late. He was already in the office about 10 hours a day, not counting the meetings and calls he took before he got to the office and after he had arrived home. Mr. Mabey told Tommy in no uncertain terms that if he was not at his desk for the morning call, he would no longer have to worry about his son waiting by the bus alone. He could be home with him every day because he would no longer be employed. Tommy meandered for the door, then looked back and said, "You don't have the authority." Mr. Mabey quickly rebutted, "You sure about that?" Having been verbally beaten into silence, Tommy arrived late to his delivery team meeting. The fact that several heated discussions were going on simultaneously made it clear that the meeting would have to be rescheduled once he had time to douse the flames. He tried to call some order to the group, but tempers roared. For the first time, he raised his voice to the group. His group, "Stop! Stop all of it right now!" The room went silent. Methodically, he called on his senior members and key personnel to provide updates on the issues and concerns. When Michael finished his report, he stood up, sauntered out of the room. No one had much else to say after that. The meeting wound down, and Tommy tried to play company man and support the new policies and desires of Mr. Mabey, even though he felt like it was betraying his own standards. Tommy had always felt like a part of the team. For the first time, he felt like an outsider.